Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. Miles stared at his reflection in the full-length mirror. His fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted the silky blouse his mother had given him, smoothing out imaginary wrinkles. The fabric felt foreign against his skin, yet strangely comforting. "You look beautiful, darling." His mother's voice drifted from behind him, warm and approving. Miles turned, a shy smile playing on his lips. "You really think so?" She crossed the room, her heels clicking rhythmically on the hardwood floor. Reaching out, she tucked a stray strand of hair behind his ear. "Of course, you have such delicate features. They suit you perfectly." A warmth bloomed in Miles's chest at her words. For years, he'd felt like a disappointment to his father. Too soft, too sensitive, not the rugged son a successful businessman should have. But here, in this moment with his mother, he felt seen, understood. "I've always wondered what it would be like," Miles admitted softly, turning back to the mirror, "to embrace this side of myself." His mother's reflection smiled back at him. "There's nothing wrong with exploring who you truly are. Your father's outdated notions of masculinity have no place in this house." The mention of his father sent a familiar pang through Miles's heart. The man was rarely home, always chasing the next big deal, the next rung on the corporate ladder. When he did grace them with his presence, it was only to criticize and belittle. "Do you think he'd hate me if he saw me like this?" Miles asked, his voice barely above a whisper. His mother's eyes hardened. "Your father's opinion doesn't matter. What matters is how you feel. Are you happy exploring this side of yourself?" Miles nodded, surprised by the conviction in his own gesture. "I am. It feels right." "Then that's all that matters." She squeezed his shoulder gently. "Now, how about we work on your walk? Those heels won't master themselves." For the next hour, Miles practiced strutting across the living room, his mother offering encouragement and tips. By the end, his feet ached, but a sense of accomplishment filled him. "You're a natural," his mother praised. "With a little more practice, you'll be turning heads in no time." Miles beamed at the compliment. "I never thought I'd enjoy this so much. It's like I'm finally becoming who I was always meant to be." His mother's eyes sparkled with an emotion Miles couldn't quite place. "I've always known you were special, darling. From the moment you were born, I sensed there was something unique about you." She crossed to the liquor cabinet, pouring 2 glasses of wine. Handing one to Miles, she raised her own in a toast. "To new beginnings and self-discovery." They clinked glasses, the crystal ringing out in the quiet room. As Miles sipped the rich red wine, he felt a shift within himself. This wasn't just play acting or rebellion. This was the start of something profound. Over the next few weeks, Miles's transformation accelerated. His mother took him shopping, filling his closet with an array of feminine clothes. She taught him the art of makeup, guiding his hand as he applied mascara and lipstick for the first time. One evening, as they sat in her expansive walk-in closet, surrounded by designer gowns and shoes, Miles found the courage to voice the thoughts that had been swirling in his mind. "Mom," he began, his heart racing. I think I want to be your daughter, not your son." His mother set down the pair of Jimmy Choos she'd been admiring and turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable for a moment, and Miles felt his stomach drop. Had he gone too far? Then slowly a smile spread across her face. "Oh, my darling, I've been waiting for you to say that." Miles blinked, taken aback. "You have?" She nodded, reaching out to take his hands in hers. "I've always known there was a beautiful young woman inside you, just waiting to emerge. I'm so proud of you for having the courage to embrace your true self." Tears welled up in Miles's eyes. "I was so afraid you'd be disappointed." "Never," his mother said firmly. "You could never disappoint me by being true to yourself. Now we should start thinking about a name for you, something elegant and feminine." They spent the rest of the evening brainstorming names, giggling like schoolgirls as they tried on different identities. Finally, they settled on Lydia. Lydia, Miles, now Lydia, repeated, savoring the sound. It's perfect. The following months were a whirlwind of change. Lydia began hormone therapy, her body slowly aligning with her true identity. Her mother hired the best coaches money could buy: voice trainers, movement specialists, even an etiquette instructor to help Lydia fully embody her new role as a sophisticated young woman. As Lydia's confidence grew, so did her resentment towards her absent father. He remained oblivious to the changes happening under his own roof, too wrapped up in his work to notice or care. One night, as Lydia and her mother shared a bottle of champagne to celebrate her first successful outing as a woman, the conversation turned to revenge. "He doesn't deserve to know you," Lydia's mother said, her words slightly slurred. "Not the real you. The beautiful, strong woman you've become." Lydia nodded, a plan forming in her mind. "What if we didn't tell him? What if the next time he bothers to come home, I'm just here, his daughter, not his son?" A wicked grin spread across her mother's face. "Oh, darling, that's deliciously cruel. I love it." They clinked glasses, sealing their pact. As the weeks passed, Lydia threw herself into her transformation with renewed vigor. She took up ballet, relishing the graceful movements and the way it sculpted her body. Her mother bought her a string of pearls, a family heirloom, to complete her elegant look. Finally, after nearly a year of absence, word came that Lydia's father would be returning home for a brief visit. Lydia and her mother spent days preparing, carefully crafting the perfect moment of revelation. The night of his arrival, Lydia stood at the top of the grand staircase, heart pounding. She wore a stunning black cocktail dress, her mother's pearls gleaming at her throat. Her hair, now long and styled in soft waves, framed her face perfectly. She heard the front door open, followed by her father's booming voice. "Hello, anyone home?" Taking a deep breath, Lydia descended the stairs. Her father stood in the foyer, his back to her as he set down his briefcase. Her mother caught Lydia's eye from across the room, giving her an encouraging nod. "Welcome home, father," Lydia said, her voice soft but clear. Her father turned, confusion evident on his face. "I'm sorry, miss. I think you have the wrong house." Lydia's mother stepped forward, placing a hand on her husband's arm. "Darling, don't you recognize our daughter? It's Lydia." The color drained from her father's face as realization dawned. What is this? Some kind of joke?" Lydia lifted her chin, meeting his gaze steadily. "No joke, father. This is who I am now. Who I've always been, really." Her father's eyes darted between Lydia and her mother, shock giving way to anger. "You did this!" he snarled at his wife. "You turned my son into this freak." "The only freak here is you," Lydia's mother shot back, her voice icy. "For being too blind to see the beautiful, talented woman your child has become." Lydia stepped closer, her heels clicking on the marble floor. "I'm not asking for your approval, father. I'm simply informing you of who I am. If you can't accept that, then perhaps it's best you leave. Permanently." For a moment, it seemed her father might explode with rage, but then, deflating like a punctured balloon, he simply shook his head. "I don't know either of you anymore," he muttered, grabbing his briefcase and storming out the door. As the echo of the slammed door faded, Lydia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She turned to her mother, who enveloped her in a tight embrace. "I'm so proud of you, my darling girl," her mother whispered. "You were magnificent." Lydia hugged her back, feeling truly free for the first time in her life. "Thank you for everything, Mom, for seeing the real me even when I couldn't." They pulled apart, both wiping away tears. "Now," her mother said with a mischievous grin, "I think this calls for some celebratory shopping. What do you say we hit Rodeo Drive tomorrow?" Lydia laughed, linking her arm through her mother's. "I'd say that sounds perfect." As they walked into the living room, Lydia caught sight of their reflection in the mirror. Two elegant, strong women united in their bond. She smiled, finally at peace with the person staring back at her. The next morning, Lydia woke to sunlight streaming through her bedroom windows. For a moment, she lay still, savoring the feeling of soft silk pajamas against her skin. The events of the previous night played through her mind, and she felt a mixture of relief and exhilaration. She padded downstairs, the hardwood cool beneath her bare feet. The house was quiet, but she could smell coffee brewing. In the kitchen, she found her mother already dressed in a chic pantsuit, sipping from a steaming mug. "Good morning, darling," her mother greeted her with a warm smile. "How did you sleep?" Lydia poured herself a cup of coffee before answering. "Surprisingly well. I thought I'd be up all night replaying everything in my head, but I slept like a baby." Her mother nodded approvingly.
"That's because you did the right thing. You stood up for yourself, for who you truly are. There's no greater peace than that."
They sat in companionable silence for a few minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Lydia spoke up. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" Her mother's expression hardened. "If he knows what's good for him, he won't. But if he does, we'll face him together. You're not alone in this, Lydia." Lydia reached across the table, squeezing her mother's hand. "I know, thank you." After breakfast, they embarked on their promised shopping spree. Rodeo Drive was a fashion lover's paradise, and Lydia found herself overwhelmed by the choices. Her mother, however, was in her element, effortlessly navigating the high-end boutiques. In Gucci, Lydia tried on a stunning emerald green dress that hugged her curves in all the right places. As she twirled in front of the mirror, she caught sight of her mother's reflection. There were tears in her eyes. "Mom, what's wrong?" Lydia asked, concerned. Her mother shook her head, smiling through her tears. "Nothing's wrong, darling. It's just, you look so beautiful, so happy. This is all I've ever wanted for you." Lydia felt her own eyes welling up. "I am happy. Happier than I've ever been." They left the store with the green dress and several other pieces. As they walked down the sun-drenched street, shopping bags in hand, Lydia felt a sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. "You know," her mother said casually, "I've been thinking. Perhaps it's time we made some changes to the house. Redecorate a bit to reflect this new chapter in our lives." Lydia's eyes lit up. "Really? That sounds amazing!" Her mother nodded, a sly smile playing on her lips. "I was thinking we could start with your father's study. Turn it into a proper dressing room for you. What do you think?" The idea of transforming that dark, masculine space into something light and feminine filled Lydia with glee. "I think that's a brilliant idea." Over the next few weeks, they threw themselves into the renovation project. The heavy oak desk was replaced with an elegant vanity. Dark leather chairs gave way to a plush chaise lounge. The walls, once a somber forest green, were repainted in a soft blush pink. As Lydia stood in the completed room, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling mirrors and racks of beautiful clothes, she felt a sense of triumph. This space, once a symbol of her father's dominance, was now uniquely hers. Her mother appeared in the doorway, holding a small velvet box. "I have something for you," she said, crossing the room to stand beside Lydia. Lydia opened the box to find a delicate gold locket nestled inside. Her mother gently took it out, fastening it around Lydia's neck. "This was my grandmother's," she explained. "She gave it to me when I turned 18, and now I'm passing it on to you. It's tradition for the women in our family." Lydia fingered the locket, overcome with emotion. "Thank you, Mom. This means so much to me." Her mother smiled, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "You're my daughter, Lydia, in every way that matters. Never forget that." As summer turned to fall, Lydia continued to blossom. She enrolled in dance classes at a prestigious studio, throwing herself into ballet with the same passion she'd once reserved for hiding her true self. Her natural grace and dedication quickly caught the attention of her instructors. One crisp October evening, as Lydia stretched at the barre before class, her favorite teacher approached her. "Lydia, do you have a moment?" Lydia nodded, straightening up. Of course, Madame Rousseau. Is everything all right? The older woman smiled warmly. More than all right. I wanted to let you know that we're holding auditions next month for our winter showcase. I think you should consider trying out for a solo piece. Lydia's heart leapt. Really? You think I'm ready? Madame Rousseau nodded firmly. You have a rare talent, my dear. With some extra practice, I believe you could be truly exceptional. That night, Lydia could hardly contain her excitement as she shared the news with her mother over dinner. Oh, darling, that's wonderful, her mother exclaimed. We must celebrate. How about we invite some of your new friends over this weekend? We could have a little soiree. The idea both thrilled and terrified Lydia. She'd made a few acquaintances at the dance studio, but she'd been hesitant to form deeper connections, worried about her past coming to light. Sensing her daughter's apprehension, her mother reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Lydia, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You're a strong, beautiful young woman. It's time to start living your life fully, without fear. Lydia took a deep breath, nodding. You're right. Let's do it. The party was a success. Lydia's new friends from the dance studio mingled with some of her mother's colleagues, filling the house with laughter and lively conversation. As Lydia moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and compliments on her home, she felt a newfound confidence settling over her like a warm blanket. Later that night, as she helped her mother clean up, Lydia found herself reflecting on how far she'd come. You know, she said, carefully wrapping a crystal champagne flute in tissue paper. A year ago, I never could have imagined this, being so comfortable in my own skin. Her mother paused in her tidying, looking at Lydia with a mixture of pride and something else, something almost wistful. I always knew you had it in you, darling. From the moment you were born, I sensed there was something special about you. Lydia tilted her head, curious. What do you mean? Her mother sighed, sinking onto the plush sofa. She patted the spot next to her, inviting Lydia to join her. I suppose it's time I told you the whole truth. Lydia sat, her heart racing. The whole truth about what? About why I've been so supportive of your transition, her mother began. You see, when I was pregnant with you, I was convinced I was having a girl. I could feel it in my bones. I spent months planning for a daughter, picking out names, buying tiny dresses. Your father, of course, was certain you'd be a boy. He had your whole life mapped out. Which prep school you'd attend, which Ivy League university, which company you'd eventually take over. She paused, taking a sip of water before continuing. When you were born and the doctor announced you were a boy, I felt devastated. Not because I didn't love you, I loved you instantly, fiercely, but because I knew the life your father had planned for you would never truly make you happy. Lydia sat in stunned silence, absorbing this revelation. Her mother pressed on. As you grew, I saw all the signs. Your sensitivity, your creativity, your discomfort with the masculine role your father tried to force you into. I wanted so badly to tell you it was okay, that you could be whoever you wanted to be. But I was afraid. Afraid of your father's reaction. Afraid of the challenges you'd face in the world. Tears were flowing freely down both their cheeks now. Lydia's mother took her hands, squeezing them tightly. When you finally found the courage to embrace your true self, I was overjoyed. Not just because I was getting the daughter I'd always dreamed of, but because I knew you were finally on the path to genuine happiness. Lydia threw her arms around her mother, hugging her tightly. Thank you, she whispered, for always seeing the real me, even when I couldn't. As they held each other, Lydia felt a sense of completeness wash over her. She was Lydia, daughter, dancer, woman, and she was finally, truly home. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.